So the book we're going to talk about is Circle Round, Raising Children in Goddess Tradition. And it's written by Starhawk, Diane Baker, and Anne Hall or Annie Hall. Annie Hall is the movie. Not Hall, Hill. Wow. Okay. Anne or Annie Hill. Let's forgive my moment. The bulk of this book actually deals with the Sabbats. You do get the earlier section where it does go over the basics um, of pagan faith or of a goddess tradition. So you have things like talking about the life cycle, um, discussion on the goddess and the god. It talks briefly. A lot of these things are brief because, again, this is something that's more trying to gear you towards delving into these things with children. So it gives you easy ways to basically be able to explain these things to children. If you don't have children, I also think this is a great book, especially for starting out because, again, it is easy to understand. So it would be like a jumping off point. This is not something that's like a detailed explanation about things, so on and so forth. You're basically getting the bare bones or the top of the bare bones. Um, so there's a little brief discussion about the elements. It has a creation story for children. There's also, and there's several stories. This book has a lot of stories, which I love that. So that you can impart information on children through stories. My daughter loves to read. She has a rather big book collection for one who is almost 4 years old. She has a bookcase. It's one of those clothy bookcases. So it doesn't have a shelving unit. It's more like pockets. So it has about 4 pockets, I think. It's totally full. I mean, like it's all stretched out and everything. And she has another bin with some books and a lot of like coloring books and like learning aid type books. So, but she's very big on reading. She loves stories. So something like this would be excellent for her, for me to be able to read her a story. Um, there's a section that discusses handing down the tradition. So it goes into things like ritual work. Uh, Casting a circle does go into purification and grounding, calling the directions, um, invoking the goddess and god. There's also sheet music in here throughout the book. There's sheet music. So like this, um, here's one song called We Welcome Air. We also have Air I Am. And if you don't read sheet music, I actually only partially read sheet music. Lucky for me, this sheet music looks like it would just basically be dealing with the right hand, which is what's easiest for me to read. It really doesn't look like piano sheet music because, again, piano sheet music, there's the top and bottom stanzas. This is only the one row. But if you're doing one hand, I'm sure it will work. However, there is an MP3 called Circle Round, which has a lot of these songs that's being sung. Um, there may be not a DVD, may also be a CD, I would assume, but you can get it, the MP3 off of Amazon.com. So it does give a brief talk about the altar, um, visualization, and trance. It also goes into a discussion about instruments. So, like, let's say you might like to use the drum during your ritual. Some like to use cymbals or um, like a chime. I do use a chime. My chime actually takes the place of a bell for me for now. I do actually intend to get a bell, but I really want to get one of the Tibetan bells, which I really can't afford right now because some of them are rather costly. Well, I mean rather costly. I don't mean like it's like $100 plus, but it's still more than I am willing to shell out right now. So I have a chime, which probably ran me definitely under $20 at the time. But it also has using ankle dancing bells and like a rain stick and so on and so forth. Me during ritual, I actually like to use music. I tend to play a lot of the pagan chants that I have, which, if this is charged, I can show you. So like here is one. I don't have the whole album. I actually only selected some of the songs that I liked. I don't know if you can see it or read it. This one is called, totally not looking good, Chants. And it says ritual music. It's by Reclaiming. So for this, on this one I have Air Moves Us, We Are the Flow, Goddess Medley, and Rise with the Fire. I also have Return to the Goddess by Lindy Lilla. Again, this looks horrible. I know you can't see it, and it's definitely not doing wonders for the album cover. Anyways, this one has, again, We Are the Flow. The previous one, We Are the Flow, is actually a medley one. This is a song one. Cauldron of Change and Earth, Air, Fire, Water. I actually have a couple more, but I'm talking about a book, baby. What is it? Go watch Dora, okay, baby? Okay. Anyways. It does go into also different activities you can do, like wreath making, making candles, shadow box. It does have recipes in here as well. Then it goes over the cycles of the moon and the sun. And I will definitely say it gives way more attention to moon cycles than the sun. By that I mean you get the information of the god and goddess during the moon cycles, a story or two pertaining to the moon cycles. You get information on doing a new moon house cleansing, a full moon house blessing, and a song called New Moon Song, and then a full moon song, and then there's a banishing ritual, and some other things, like some little activities and hacks and things you can bake. Sun cycles. Sun cycles actually has a brief description of the god and goddess, and then has like a ritual. That's it. Now the bulk of the book, which is this much of the book, is dedicated to the Sabbats. This earlier part here, I know the sun is like atrocious right now. This is all that the earlier part is. Pretty much everything else, majority of the book is the Sabbats, not the remainder. So, in talking about the Sabbats, it does go over information about like the god and goddess for each Sabbat. Altar, there's usually a story. There was one, what was that one story? Was it for Beltane? And I really should remember this. Let's see. Bear with me here. And you're kind if you do bear with me. And I knew it wasn't Beltane. I really should have said spring. Ostara because it has to deal with Demeter and Persephone. I actually like this story. Talks about Persephone, her journey to the underworld, and what transpires between her, Hades, and Demeter, and basically explains how we have seasons. You also get for each one, it also does have activities you can do. Um, uh, Baking, a ritual or blessing of some sort, music that fits the Sabbat. And then you get into life cycles, discussion of the life cycles. So it starts off with, well, let's start off with a baby or before a baby. I'm going to say with a baby. So you start off with, say, like information on like awakening, even during birth, what you can do during birth, during the birth of your baby. It even has things like a fairy coverlet ritual, umbilical cord magic, a newborn blessing ritual. Then it goes on into growth. So it goes on into uh, growing up, young adults. Um, then it talks about different coming of age things and certain things that will affect, growing up, like the idea of beauty. Um, it does go further into goddess and god information. Um, Talks about sexuality. And then there are stories as well associated with that. Um, then it goes on to more rites of passage. So for the girl, there's about your first menstrual cycle. And then there's a blessing. It gives an example of a blessing you can do for that. For a young man, there's a blessing, a coming of age blessing for a young man. And other things. And then it also goes on to discussing death. And also things like transitions in a person's life. So I feel this is a very informational, informative book. Does give information about the elements, meditations, other rituals you can do. Like there's a healing ritual. There's other stories in the book too. There's sorry. There's let's see. Like here it touches on the ethics of a goddess tradition. So the morals of magic is discussed. Do as thou wilt and harm none. This section. Pagan family values. It discusses manners. So adapting the traditions we were raised in. Facing prejudice is also covered, which is very important. Does briefly touch on educating the public. That section is more of a question and answer thing. So it's like questions you can expect people to ask you about the faith, like what do you worship? Uh, what is a witch? What is a pagan? Do witches have supernatural powers? Do witches practice magic? Okay, baby. Well, you watch Bubble Guppies. Okay. Do pagans believe in Jesus Christ? And it gives you little answers you can say to address these questions. There's a tree of life meditation, a place of power meditation. Um, Again, it goes into some crafts you can do. Um, what else is there? I think that's pretty much it. There's notes. There's there's a notes section. There is a resources section where it has like here it is, books for families to enjoy, goddess tradition, periodicals, organizations, and websites, and again, listing of those. Some of them you might have heard of, like Pangaea. Um, I did not have Reclaiming Quarterly, but there's that. Uh, Sources for books and music of pagan traditions. So, and there's a little brief synopsis about the authors at the end. So this book, I feel, is very beneficial. Definitely if you have children and you are interested in raising your children in the goddess faith, I feel this is a must-have. If you do not have children, this is still an invaluable resource because it does give you a little basic on everything. Much like any of these other books by Laurie Cabot or Christopher Penczak or Raymond Buckland, all those books are or should be seen as, especially one-on-one books, should be seen as jumping off places. These books are not your keys to all knowledge. These books are the keys to unlocking the door. You have to step through that door and find more information yourself. So, like, let's say, there are some who complain that one-on-one books don't teach you some other things. It doesn't go into depth into, say, trance work or certain divinations or shadow work or things like that. It's not supposed to. It's the bare bones. It's your starting off point. One-on-one books are not the be-all and end-all. They are not in depth. You are to, once you've done your one-on-one research, you are to then pick something that you want to learn about in particular. Focus on that for a while. Go find books on that topic. So you've say you've had your fill of one-on-one books. You want more. Find books on shadow work. Find books that specifically deal with shadow work. Find books that specifically deal with ritual work. And you'll get more in-depth information pertaining to ritual work, how to do your rituals, how to be able to construct your own rituals. Me personally, I do not construct my own rituals. I don't feel I'm there yet. What I do is I come across rituals that I like and I modify it. I don't call it my own. In fact, mainly as a tool to help me remember where I got it from, I'll more often than not list where I got that ritual from. If it was from YouTube or if it was from a book in particular or if it was from a website, I try to note that somewhere so I know I can look back somewhere. But I do modify it. I do make some changes to it. I have been studying with Witch School International, which if many know, has a channel on YouTube called Magic TV. And it teaches you the basics of ritual work, the basics of cleansing your ritual items. And I do not, for my own practice, I actually do pull from what they taught as far as, like, say, cleansing your items. However, I have modified it some. So I don't exactly do it how it says to do it there. And even in there, it lets you know that this is suggested, not your be-all and end-all. So if you want to learn about deity, any deity in particular, find books specifically geared to information about that deity. I personally would go a step further and then find information on that society. So for me, like, the two main deities that I honor is Isis and Ganesh. So what I've done is I started researching ancient Egypt. I do have some books on ancient Egypt, on life in ancient Egypt, everyday life in ancient Egypt, not just magical ancient Egyptian books. I do have the Book of the Dead. Um, I have not really read it yet. That's more because I want to further go into and explore ancient Egyptian life, everyday life. So I also do watch a lot of documentaries on ancient Egypt as well. Same thing with Ganesh. I have books pertaining to Hinduism. Um, I am not going to practice Hinduism, but I want to learn more about the faith in which Ganesh comes from. Eventually, I'll move on to learning more about the society or maybe the ancient society. So just know that 101 books is like a roadmap. You know, it's just your bare bones thing. It's not in depth. It's up to you to take what you've learned from 101 books, take a topic in particular, focus on that, study that. Then you move on. Um, so okay, I didn't mean for there to be a rant attached to the book, the book discussion, but yeah, whatever. So um, anyway, circle round, Raising Children in Goddess Traditions. Excellent book. I found it to be rather informative. I found it to be very helpful in trying to figure out how I can address certain topics with my daughter. She will be 4 shortly here, and we have decided that probably by the end of this year I'll start, or maybe the beginning of next year. I don't know. But we've decided in our family tradition to start incorporating uh, pagan things in with Christian celebrations. Because right now we do still celebrate just Easter and Christmas and things like that with the family. But now that she's getting older and her attention seems to be holding a little longer on some things, um, we felt that she's ready to be able to start to participate more in these holidays. So we'll be doing pagan holidays with Christian holidays. So, and I find this book to have a lot of great suggestions as to how to include her in ritual, what to do, how to explain things to her, so on and so forth. So I definitely suggest the book. I thought it was great. I know there are, I've seen some book reviews where they thought it was overhyped. It may be. I felt it was helpful and beneficial. So there you go, my opinion. Um, but again, thank you for watching and blessed be.